Happy New Year! Hello, everybody. Abby Johnson here. I hope you all had a fantastic holiday and Christmas and New Year. It's good to be back with you guys. And unfortunately, I have sort of a bummer story to report to all of you. But there was this story that came out from the New York Times, and it was a story about prenatal testing, and some of you may have already seen it, but it was a story talking about how these prenatal tests that many women are offered, and they're really pushed on a lot of women by their OB-GYNs when you're pregnant, they're wrong many times. In fact, what the New York Times found is that sometimes up to 90% of the time, these tests come back inaccurate, especially for these really rare syndromes that they test for. So, a long time ago when the test first came out, they really just tested for Downs or trisomy 18 or the different trisomies. And they were pretty accurate when they tested for those. But then they started testing for all of these really rare genetic disorders. And the problem, there's many problems, but one of the problems is that these tests, when they advertise themselves as reliable and, accurate, and they tell the parents that they can have total confidence in the results that they get back. But that is a total lie, because what the New York Times found is that in sometimes 90% of the time, the results are inaccurate. And so a lot of times these women that have these tests, they are getting the results back, and the prognosis for the results that for these syndromes that they're getting back are many times fatal. So, they're getting results back for these different syndromes, and the parents are being told, your baby's going to die, even before delivery, or your baby's going to die right after delivery. And so the parents are like, oh, well, then we must abort because our baby's going to suffer. And they get the results back, and the doctors are telling them, you need to abort, your baby's going to suffer. And so they're aborting babies, and they're aborting perfectly healthy babies. And that's a problem, right? But that's actually not the biggest problem for me, okay? The biggest problem for me is not that the test exists, okay? Because full disclosure, I've had 7 children. We have 8 children, but 7 children biologically. We have only done prenatal testing one time, and that was with our youngest, Fulton, because he was actually a twin pregnancy, and we lost his twin. And so we decided to do prenatal testing on him, not because abortion was ever on the table, but because we wanted to be sure that if there was a problem with him, that we had the appropriate people in the room when he was delivered. Nothing was wrong. He was perfectly fine, whatever. But that was the only time we've ever decided to do prenatal testing. And everything came back fine, and we didn't have any false positives or anything. But my problem is not with the test itself, okay? My problem is that people have perverted the test to use it sort of as this form of eugenics, right? So a few years ago in Iceland, the president of Iceland proudly came out and said, we have eradicated Down syndrome in Iceland. But that's not true. They still have Down syndrome. Women are still getting pregnant with babies that have Down syndrome. They have simply aborted every child that is diagnosed with Down syndrome in the womb, right? Because they now live in a society in Iceland that believes that children with Down syndrome are not worthy of life. And that is a very eugenics sort of mindset, right? And that is really what this is promoting. That is how these tests have been perverted to basically say that children that are diagnosed with something abnormal in the womb, okay, with some sort of, diagnosis, have some sort of diagnosis in the womb, are not worthy of life. And something is wrong with them. And so, you need to think about termination. And that really is what many doctors will push on these women because they're scared of wrongful birth lawsuits or whatever it may be, because the doctors, many of them, don't really believe that these children are worthy of life either. And so it's really this warped eugenics sort of mindset that we only birth babies that are perfect, that we only birth babies that don't have any sort of disability. And so we're going to create test after test after test and screening after screening after screening to make sure that we get these perfect little children that don't have any diagnosis. And that's the worst part for me. Because every child that is created with a purpose by God. Even if that child's life on earth is short. Even if that child is only with us for a short amount of time. That child was created with a purpose. And that's something that all of us in our society need to embrace and learn to embrace. And unfortunately, all of this testing is really not helping us as a society understand that all life has value, that all life is worth living, and that we all have a greater purpose here on earth.